The call for aid. The galaxy was never silent. Even in its vast emptiness, signals crossed the void. Pleas, warnings, propaganda, trade routes tracked by beacon lights older than some civilizations themselves. To most species, it was comforting noise. To others, it was a map of power and submission. But to the Scythe, it was a death sentence. Their empire had once ruled 3 spirals of stars, its war fleets feared, its banners stretching across burning skies of conquered worlds. Yet now, the Scythe were cornered, hunted, and desperate. Their enemies, the relentless Ascari Dominion, had broken through every defensive wall, shattered every pact, and desecrated every safehold the Scythe had. Their cities were falling one after another, their children enslaved or slaughtered, and the heart of their empire bled. There was no one left to turn to. No one except them. The humans. The forbidden species. The unpredictable ones. The warriors no empire dared call allies or enemies for too long, because the outcome was always chaos. For centuries, humanity had withdrawn from the galactic stage. After their bloody wars of expansion and the inexplicable technological leaps that made them a match for any coalition, the humans had turned inward. They cut off their channels, sealed their gates, and their fleets vanished into uncharted voids. Some claimed Earth had fallen. Others whispered that humanity was evolving into something beyond the galaxy's comprehension. Whatever the truth was, no one sought them anymore. Not after the wars. Not after the reminders. And yet, the Scythe Council, trembling in desperation, chose to break the silence. They sent the call. Not a demand, not a plea wrapped in manipulation or diplomacy, just raw, unfiltered truth. Our kind will not survive the month. The Ascari will slaughter every one of us. If you, humanity, still exist, if you remember the debt we once shared, please, answer. Aid us. Or let us burn. The signal was cast into the stars. A gamble, a prayer, a suicide note. And for 10 days, there was nothing but silence. On the 11th day, the silence broke. A ripple tore across the dark. Not a fleet. Not a message. Something older. Something colder. It was a voice. Not machine-generated. Not alien. But human. We heard you. The Scythe Council chambers trembled at the words. Thousands of species had broadcast pleas into the void over the ages. Famines, wars, dying worlds, and none had ever drawn a response from the reclusive humans. But now, the Scythe's plea had awakened something. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some screamed that it was a trap, that the humans were waiting for weakness, only to destroy them after the Ascari had finished their work. Others wept, remembering stories of when humans had stood beside the Scythe in an older war, driving back the scourge fleets that devoured suns. But before the arguments could finish, the humans sent another transmission. This time, it was not words. It was coordinates. A single system, close to the Ascari invasion front. A system that was supposed to be empty. The Scythe stared. The meaning was clear. Humanity was not promising aid in abstract terms. They were ordering the Scythe survivors to come. Or be left behind. The Scythe's remaining fleets limped toward the coordinates. Thousands of refugee ships followed, each carrying the last remnants of a dying people. Entire families, soldiers stripped of weapons, scholars clutching their archives. They came not with pride, but with the despair of a civilization begging the void for mercy. The Ascari pursued, of course. Their jagged, insectal warships flooded into the region, eager to finish the hunt. They smelled blood, and the Scythe knew their end was near. Until the void opened. Until humanity returned. It began as a shadow. At first, the Scythe thought the darkness blooming on their scanners was a black hole, an anomaly swallowing all signals. But then the shadow shifted, resolving into edges, geometry, and metallic hunger. A ship. No, not a ship. Something far greater. The human warship emerged from folded space, eclipsing every Ascari vessel. Its hull stretched like a cathedral of war, plated in black alloys that devoured starlight. Whole cities seemed carved into its flanks. Its weapons glowed faintly with dormant fury, arrays larger than the Zythe's capital stations. It was silent, motionless, and utterly terrifying. The Askari, arrogant and eager, did not hesitate. They opened fire. Streams of plasma, swarms of living torpedoes, cutting beams, an entire storm of annihilation poured into the human warship. The Zythe watched in despair. The storm touched the human ship's hull, and then vanished. Every shot dissolved into nothing, absorbed into fields that twisted reality itself. The human warship did not even flicker. Then it spoke. Not through comms. Not through translation. It spoke through the minds of every creature present. A simple message, layered in 1,000 tones. We gave you fair warning once. Do not mistake our silence for weakness. The Askari armada hesitated. Just for a breath. That breath cost them everything. The human warship came alive. Weapons that looked like stars ignited along its hull. Beams of pure gravitational collapse tore through Askari dreadnoughts as if they were paper. Swarms of drones, each one the size of a cruiser, spilled from its bays, moving with insectal precision and terrifying silence. Where the Askari had relied on overwhelming numbers, the humans answered with finality. Ships burned. Ships broke. Ships vanished. Not one Askari vessel survived the first 3 minutes of contact. The Zythe refugees, trembling in their transports, stared as humanity carved reality itself into a battlefield. And they realized, too late, that this was not aid. This was commitment. When the last Askari ship was gone, silence returned. The human warship drifted, its hull scarred with faint burns that healed before the Zythe's eyes. No message came. No command. Only a single beacon pulse, echoing into the void. Coordinates again. More systems. More front lines. And the meaning was unmistakable. Humanity was not coming just to save the Zythe. They were coming for the entire war. That night, as the Zythe Council huddled in their temporary chambers aboard a refugee ark, they whispered the same question, over and over. Why us? Why now? Why answer our plea, when humanity ignored so many others? And in the silence that followed, one elder finally spoke. Because we reminded them what they once swore. That when humanity commits, they do not commit halfway. Outside the viewport, the warship moved again, vanishing into folded space like a predator stalking the void. The Zythe prayed it was on their side. Because they had just unleashed something the galaxy had long forgotten. And humanity never did anything in half measures. The price of commitment. The galaxy had seen wars before. It had seen genocides, crusades, exterminations that spanned across centuries. But never, never, had it seen this. Where humanity went, silence followed. The Askari had once been unstoppable, their insectal fleets pouring across systems like locusts, their hives consuming everything in their path. But now, they fled. Whole sectors that had been crimson with conquest burned bright with retreat. And behind them came the humans. The Zythe refugees followed reluctantly. At first, they believed they had gained salvation, protected by the vast, indomitable shadow of the human warship. But salvation soon twisted into horror. Because the humans were not simply defeating the Askari. They were erasing them. The first signs came with the ruined colonies. The Askari had once enslaved billions across the rim worlds. Now, when the Zythe fleets arrived in the humans' wake, they found nothing. No survivors. No oppressors. No bodies. Entire cities reduced to white ash, their structures crystallized into silence. The Askari hives had not been conquered, they had been unmade. At first, the Zythe told themselves it was mercy. That perhaps humanity's weapons burned so hot and so final that no trace could remain. But then they noticed the patterns. Every Askari signature, genetic, digital, historical, was gone. Not just their ships, not just their armies. The records. The memories. The idea of them. It was as if humanity was rewriting the galaxy, carving out the Askari not merely from space, but from existence itself. The Xyth Council tried to protest. They attempted to contact the human warship, to demand explanation, to remind them that this war was supposed to be about aid. The humans did not answer. The only reply was another set of coordinates. More battlefronts. More fleets to annihilate. The Xyth were no longer allies. They were witnesses. And witnesses began to fear. By the third week, rumors spread across the survivors. Some whispered that the warship was not a fleet at all, but a single machine, built for an ancient war humanity had never spoken of. Others claimed there was no crew aboard, that it was humanity itself, uploaded into steel and wrath, its collective will forged into a singular god of vengeance. None of the Xyth wanted to believe those stories. But then, one night, a transmission slipped through. A voice. Human. Male. Calm. We did not want this war. We warned the galaxy centuries ago. If ever we were called again, if ever our commitment was asked of us, we would not hold back. Static consumed the rest. The Xyth shuddered. Because the voice had not sounded angry. It had not sounded vengeful. It had sounded resolved. The Ascari High Queen finally made her stand in the Karish Nebula, gathering every surviving brood into one final bastion. 10,000 ships. A swarm so vast that the stars themselves vanished beneath their tide. The humans came with one ship. The Xyth begged them not to go. They pleaded that the war was already won, that the Ascari could be crippled, enslaved, or bound in treaty. There was no need to wipe out an entire species. The human warship ignored them. It plunged into the swarm. And the galaxy held its breath. The battle lasted 1 hour. At least, battle was the wrong word. It was a cleansing. The human warship unfolded like a god awakening. Sections of its hull split open, releasing impossible geometries that bent space into fractal storms. Weapons that had no name ripped through the Ascari fleets, tearing matter into strings of light. The Xyth saw suns collapse in miniature, chained to the warship's will, and hurled as bombs. They saw drones multiply endlessly, birthed from quantum forges mid-battle, each one slaughtering thousands. And in the end, the Ascari's final scream echoed not in sound, but in thought. Billions of voices shrieking across the void, then cut off, as if a blade severed them from reality. When the silence returned, there was nothing left. Not ships. Not wreckage. Not corpses. The Ascari had been erased. The Xyth should have celebrated. The war was over. Their survival secured. Their tormentors destroyed. But no one cheered. Because in the pit of their stomachs, every Xyth elder knew the truth. Humanity had not come for them. Humanity had come because someone dared to ask. And once humanity committed, there was no turning back. The warship turned toward the Xyth fleets. For the first time, it spoke directly again. The debt is paid. You are safe. Relief rippled through the refugee ships. Tears, laughter, prayers. But then the voice continued. Safety requires permanence. You understand this. The council froze. What do you mean? One elder whispered. And the answer came like the toll of a funeral bell. The galaxy asked for our return. You will not dismiss us again. In that moment, the Xyth understood the cost. Humanity had saved them. But humanity had also decided something else. They would never leave again. The humans began to spread. Their warships splintered into fleets, each shard a seed of unimaginable power. They moved across sectors, rewriting borders, extinguishing threats not yet risen, consuming everything that could one day rise against them. Worlds that had nothing to do with the Ascari War were judged, weighed, and in many cases, erased. The humans did not negotiate. They did not ask permission. They did not stop. The Xyth Council gathered in despair. We've unleashed something worse, one whispered. No, another said, trembling. Not worse. Just final. Because the truth was undeniable now, humanity had no malice. They were not punishing. They were not vengeful. They were committed. And once committed, humanity was unstoppable. The last transmission the Scythe ever received burned itself into their archives. A human voice, calm and quiet, echoing into the stars. You asked for our aid. You forgot what that meant. We do not save halfway. We do not fight halfway. When we commit forever. The message ended. Across the galaxy, one word began to spread in every tongue, whispered with awe and dread. Not humans. Not allies. Not even conquerors. The word was older. Simpler. Overlords. Because the galaxy finally understood the truth too late. When you asked for humanity's help, you were not saved. You were claimed. And in the cold dark, the stars themselves seemed to dim, as the human fleets spread outward, endless, tireless, committed, until no corner of the galaxy could ever escape their reach.